In the second part of the Immersive Reader tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can use Microsoft Edge browser to customize web pages to make them easier to see and read. The Edge browser is part of Windows 10, so if you have a Windows 10 implementation in your school or your college or your local authority, it's very likely that you'll have access to the Edge browser and the immersive learning tools which are built into the browser. So the first thing to do is to start the Edge browser, and if you haven't seen it before or you haven't noticed it, if I just do a search for down in the Windows box, it looks like this. So it's a blue square icon with a white E in the middle. So it's a white E within a blue box. So that's what the Edge icon looks like to get started, and you just click on that to start. So this is the Edge browser, and I've got an article ready to read, and this article is about the telescope that looks further back in time. So it could really be any article that we're looking at, and what we want to do is look at how we can sort of declutter the page, because just note to the right hand side there's lots of other information and stuff going on that we might not necessarily want the pupil or the reader to look at. We just want to focus particularly on this article. Now the thing about the learning tools, they're not immediately obvious, so you've got to kind of go hunting for them. So that's really the reason of why I put this tutorial together, so you could find them quickly and easy. And there's various ways in which you can do that. So first of all, you have to find a page which supports Reading View. And by that I mean is when you come to a web page, is that you get this book icon. And you can see there's a pop-up menu just at the top which says, if I click off that, click onto it, and click off, it changes. So if I just hover over there, so that's one way of doing it. And when I click onto the Reading View, you can see just along here, if I just highlight the article, just to the left of the HTTPS site, there's this thing called read. Okay, so that tells me it's gone into read mode. So let's just take that away, let's take that off. So we're going back to the BBC site, so it's just back to the HTTPS www. So equally, one of the ways we could also get in is just by going up here at the very front and typing in read. So if I type in read and a colon and press enter, that takes me into it as well. Okay, so just different ways in which you can get into that. Also, there's the little pop-up menu. So Control Shift and R. So Control Shift and R also gets into the reading mode. Okay, so there's 3 different ways in which you can get into reading mode. So I'll definitely show you learners how to use Control Shift and R for quick access. So if I press Control Shift and R again, that takes me out. Okay, so some good options for getting in and out of the page. So now we're in, we want to then customize the page, and it looks slightly different from where it was. Now the toolbar has actually disappeared. So what we want to do is just right click on here, so right click, and on the menu you can see we have show or hide toolbar, and we also have underneath read aloud. So one thing to note is that even if this icon isn't always available in web pages for the immersive reading tools, it's very likely that you'll be able to use read aloud, and I'll demonstrate what read aloud looks like soon. But first of all, into the show or hide toolbar. So that's just a right click and show or hide toolbar. So if you didn't know how to do that, you wouldn't know it's there, and that can be a bit of a pain. So first thing we have is, you notice that when we go into the reading view, is that the page layout changes, and if I just go into text options and I say increase the text size of the page, and I move, if I click on the right arrow here, we go to the next part, so next page. So you can also use the arrows, but they're quite small on either side of the page to go back. You could just use the scroll on a mouse, or the up and down arrow on the keyboard will do the same thing. Okay, so there's various ways in which you can do that. So I'm just using the up and down arrow to go forward, scroll key, or you can just use that way by clicking on to go back. So you can see, let's right click and bring back show or hide toolbar. So text options, we've got text options, read aloud, and learning tools. So let's have a quick look at what these are, because you can either use them in combination or just independent as they are. So text size allows you to really increase the font size, but you can see just by the pop-up menu is just the Control and Plus key. So essentially, if I use the Control and Plus key, which we've looked at before, it's just using the same thing as that. Okay, so basically it's just really magnifying or zooming the text in and out. But it does have some page themes in there as well that might be useful. That's different ways in which you can add those colours. Read aloud.
The telescope that looks further back in time.
Okay, we can see it's reading the page now.
www.bbc.co.uk. 3 minutes
We can
read.
pause it, or we can press to
Image
play.
copyright Getty Images. A team of astronomers and engineers in Edinburgh have
We can
constructed an
fast-forward it,
instrument that
next
can look
paragraph,
further back in time
or
than
back
ever
to the
before.
previous paragraph.
It is a key
And there's
part of
also
an
some options in
international
here
mission
for the
to launch
voices.
a
It's not
huge new
a
telescope
large,
1 million miles
really
from Earth.
choice of voices. It's kind of what's
The James Webb Space
installed into the
Telescope,
system
JWST,
rather than maybe the
is
Scottish
years behind
voices.
schedule and billions of dollars.
Right, so I'll pause that. Other way you can do, of course, you could use the tab key. So I'm using the tab key on the keyboard to access that. If I press Shift Tab, that takes me along. So Tab and Shift Tab and
There's over
Spacebar
budget. But scientists say it will have the
press
ability to detect
for it to read
anything.
aloud, and the spacebar to stop. So there's lots of ways in which you can interact to make that more accessible for learners who might find it difficult clicking. Okay, so now we're on our page and we can see we've got some basic options here. We can have it read aloud, but if I go back, right click that and go back to the learning tools. Now learning tools gives us a lot more options. We've got text spacing, for example, which might help. We've got a lot more colour options in there too. So lots of options for different page themes, as it's called. Grammar tools here as well. So if you may be doing maybe an English sort of exercise where you're looking at the nouns of a web page, that sort of thing, you can do that too. I've switched that on, sorry, first, so you can see the nouns and their different colours, and of course you can change the colours to suit that sort of thing as well. But we also have here is reading preferences. So I'm just going to pop along to a page where there's a bit more text, something like that. Let's go back into learning tools. I'm going to switch off these, so we've just got the plain text. And now we've got a page where if I go back into learning tools this time and use reading preferences, now you've probably seen this before in the Microsoft Office, and now we can use that and we can scroll back up down in here to go through the various pages. Or what we could do, if we go back into the text options, if we were to make that bigger, okay, that's probably easier to read, to focus on, and maybe change that background colour, or back into learning tools and text options, and maybe let's just say that's might be easier to see. Back into reading preferences, and let's change the line bar just to 1. So now we've got, you're just focusing on the line of the text, which makes it much easier to read. And then obviously I can just go back to read aloud, and on read aloud we can have it read back to us as well. So you've got line tracking,
will be fitted with
focus,
an infrared instrument, MyRe, which is one of 4 key detectors.
and magnification.
MyRe will be able to look back in time to just...
Okay, so let's just quick summarise of what we did there. So if I click off that, right click to show or hide the toolbar, right click to bring it back. Learning tools are in there. Let's take the line focus off. Text options, we can move up and down. Different page themes we've got. From side to side, you can see that looks much easier to read when the text is quite large. So even if you just wanted it just as plain as that, you could do that